Welcome back to Babylon 5, as Sheridan must call for order in the Alliance Chamber. That'll get their attention. The issue right now is that most of the governments won't sign the Declaration of Principles, which is a prelude to gaining the technology that was promised. They object because their history shows they've never done things like the Narn and Centauri, and resent being told that they have to make promises not to. But the counterpoint is kind of important. We don't want to give you advanced technology if you're going to start dominating or conquering with it. That defeats the purpose of our alliance of peace and harmony. We just want to make sure you use this responsibly. Yeah, responsibly. Now, where can I get my death ray? Sheridan soon has a private meeting with Garibaldi after everyone's walked out, and asks his opinion on this. Garibaldi sides with Londo, put the declaration on hold until the alliance is settled in. But that irritates Sheridan, who feels without it, the alliance doesn't stand for anything. That's not an invalid point, but neither is Garibaldi's note that these people respect strength. Winning them over with words alone isn't going to be enough, not for right now. In these early days, keeping this unprecedented union together is going to be a serious enough challenge as it is, without deciding to do it on hard mode. Meanwhile, on some other planet, some poor saps are getting blasted by spacecraft. So are they grateful that there's a ranger here to take word of their problem back to Babylon 5?
He will help us, Mercat. He will take word of our situation to the Alliance at Babylon 5, and they will come. They will fight for us, and they will save us.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. After the titles, they address an applicant in need of food after a rough harvest season, while Jakar works on trying to make the wording of the declaration more palatable to the Drazi.
We may be able to get the Bakmara on board to help, but they're going to need something in exchange.
Oh, offer them my body. Another 10 minutes of this, I'll be dead anyway.
I second the motion.
Besides the fact that exchange is funny, it actually made me consider a moment, because Londo's body would be desirable to the Pakmara because, they'd eat it. The Pakmara eat carrion, and this is an agricultural planet. So are they essentially farming roadkill? Like the butcher business, only we let the stuff sit around for the better part of a week to get good and gamey? Let's hope they send whatever they feed the livestock then, and not rotting carcasses. That'd be a horrible way to induct a new species into the Alliance. They'd think they were being hazed. Well, Garibaldi now gets a chance to broach his concern. The Rangers' reports are all well and good, but they could use an extra edge. Telepaths, and we just so happen to have a colony of them who said they're prepared to earn their keep. Sheridan and Delenn don't love this idea, but Garibaldi notes that humanity is the only species that has telepaths and doesn't use them in a military or intelligence capacity. And he thinks maybe, no matter his personal reservations, it's time they reconsider that. When he says he just wants to know if they're down for it with no commitment that it has to actually be done, Sheridan says, okay, fine, go ask, and then we can talk about it afterwards. Well, the problem is Garibaldi is not exactly the ambassador of goodwill, so he goes in there more like a cop and less like someone looking to discuss a partnership.
Okay, let's try this again, shall we?
How to make friends and influence people.
Afternoon, my name's Michael Garibaldi.
Yes, it is. And the answer is no.
Though Byron doesn't seem to be Mr. Diplomacy himself.
Run rhymes and little songs through our heads, round and round. All that to keep from picking up what you're broadcasting loud enough to be heard halfway down the hall.
It was all, will you give us a chance, when they wanted to stay, but now they're here, they get all snooty if those are outside their group. This leads a note to Garibaldi that he wasn't scanning, it's just that Garibaldi thinks so loudly, and Byron doesn't want to go through gestures in order to avoid that. Now, fair enough. But calling attention to what he was doing, it's... how best to put this? Think of it like a woman with large breasts is not only wearing a tight top, but is unaware basically it's showing everything. Now, I was born with 2 eyes, and I wasn't the one who dressed her that way. But nevertheless, it would still be rude for me to spend our conversation looking right at them, and would be highly inappropriate for me to then comment about them. In fact, generally it would be considered appropriate for me to attempt to avert my eyes if I see that kind of situation. Why? Because it's something personal. You can obviously see where this is going. One's own thoughts are personal, And even though we, to telepaths, might be letting it all hang out sometimes, it would generally be polite to not gawk. Never mind not do what Byron tends to do and just talk about the fact that you're getting all in there. So that's the really irritating thing about Byron there. Yeah, we'll get to in a moment how there are some mitigating circumstances in this particular instance, but this is hardly an isolated incident, and I feel the need to call it out now so that we can see down the line why Byron is, well, it's kind of like there's a sliding scale of asshole in the whole thing if you're looking where you really shouldn't be. And Byron's insufferable characteristic, probably the biggest one, is that he shoves it to the end of the scale, believing he's entitled to practically shove his face into the metaphorical cleavage just because he has the ability to, and complains about how people don't trust telepaths while motorboating. Again, there's a mitigating factor here, though. Byron does have one point, that Garibaldi in this situation is nothing to complain about, on account of he came here to see if he could get Byron's people to do, well, what Byron just did. I mean, it's a little bit muddier than that. It's not like giving a soldier a gun gives them the moral authority to then shoot you with it. But at the same time, you would probably have rules for engagement in such a situation there. And it seems like those rules would be extremely broad in what Garibaldi is trying to do. I'm just saying, it's not like we're talking about bringing in some captured terrorist and going through his head to find out where the bomb is. Anyway, on the topic of going through people's heads, Lita is called in because the Ranger, his ship is so badly shot up he's on death's door, and Delenn wants to know what happened. The poor huddled masses say that 10 years ago, raiders came and plundered their world, destroying their cities and their leadership, and now come every 6 months to pillage again because of all the valuable resources. They're asking to join the Alliance, but it'll have to be a short interview because in 12 days, the raiders will be here and in such numbers that these people will be wiped out. The Ranger is aware that he's on death's door, but his thoughts quickly turn to those poor people to make sure that they are saved. Remember that. She sees him walking through a door into a spinning tunnel of light, and he's gone. So, that's death. Could be better, but it could be worse. I rate it 3 stars. Not recommending. I suggest going with life instead. Delenn shares what Lita learned, that they're the Enfili, located in Drazi space, but in the outer territories where they don't really operate. So it looks like the Alliance is going to have to get involved, or else they'd be violating the Declaration of Principles, and that probably isn't a good move after making such a big deal out of them. Considering they managed to do that to a White Star, though, there's a question of what the Raiders have at their disposal. Big guns or lots of guns? So Delenn says, hey, you know what? Why don't we just send all of the White Stars that we can spare? There's an ancient Minbari saying, go big or go home. Sharon talks to the Drazi ambassador, who has a passing familiarity with the Enfili, but reiterates that they're rather remote. While he's given time to discuss matters with his government, Byron seems to be up to something, but that'll have to wait. Lita's bothered being in that guy's head when he died, and is a little prickly when Garibaldi shows up. She explains how it feels when you're inside someone's head and they die. A little part of you grows cold, like a bit of your soul is pulled away with them. There's even a rumor that Bester went through that one time too many, that basically all of him fell down that rabbit hole. That's what made him into what he is, just cold. Anyway, Garibaldi mentions the job for Lita.
Did they tell you they were tired of being used by mundanes?
Yes,
Did they tell you to go to hell?
in so many words.
Then I don't see a problem.
Pity that Bester can't be as warm and cuddly as her. Well, Garibaldi convinces her in the end that the Alliance needs this. It's trying to do some good. But Sheridan and Delenn's rose-colored glasses risks getting in the way. We catch up with Sheridan getting up in the middle of the night, and soon someone's at the door. They've left a scroll. Turns out it's Jakar's revised Declaration of Principles, and how we are now one. No matter who or what we are one.
Sit. No!
Yes, even him. He calls her a lapdog. so she turns to leave, but stops when he says she deserves better. And I don't think anyone would disagree. Or with him saying that they're tired of being used, as a perfectly justifiable feeling.
They forget we're human beings, too.
No, not human beings. Better. That's why they're afraid of us.
There we disagree. Yes, Byron, you can read thoughts. You can put images in the minds of others. But can you throw, kick, or carry a ball in a way that makes tens of thousands jump to their feet and cheer? Can you dance with a grace and ease that rivals heavenly bodies in their perfection? Or use your hands to keep 7 objects in the air at once? Or use your fingers to make things disappear? You can channel the waters of emotions to go where you wish, but can you make them run uphill with well-chosen words alone? You care for those like you, but can you summon empathy for those who aren't? Have you nursed an animal back to health for no reason other than even its life is precious? Have you reached the skies with a tower you've built, spanned a gap with a bridge you designed, immortalized an idea with a monument crafted by your hands? Your abilities are wonderful, and they make you special. They do not make you better. If a person without obligation delivers hot meals to shut-ins, by what metric are you, who are capable of so much more, better when you do less? You've devoted yourself to a cause larger than yourself, yes, and that's good. But sitting in your cloistered hall, getting high off the fumes of your own farts, that will only diminish you in the end. Byron follows that up by referring to humanity's ego and then quoting from Hamlet, where the Paragon of animals of the title comes from.
How noble in reason. How infinite in faculties. In form and moving, how express and admirable. In action, how like an angel. In apprehension, how like a god.
See, Byron misses the point completely. It's that for all those things, Hamlet looks and sees only dust. On the scale of the universe, we are dust that, for a flicker of a moment, has the capacity to do rather than to simply be. And in that is everything. You are not better because of what you can do, but because of what you choose to do. As Jakar said, we are one, and someone who can heal only one and so chooses to do so is better than someone who can heal thousands but chooses to heal none. And for all of Byron's comments about humans and talking as if they're distinct, telepaths are not distinct from humanity as a species, by definition, because we can interbreed. All those atrocities of humanity, all those mistakes along the way that you point to, they're your history too. You don't get to declare yourself exempt from that simply because of your magical powers. You're just as much a part of that legacy as the rest of us. Anyway, Byron sees Lita as one of his kind, so if it matters to her that they help Garibaldi, then Byron will help Garibaldi. He also shares what he learned from the Drazi's thoughts. The White Stars are heading into a trap. The Drazi approach is to silently give raiders the means to raid systems that are on the edges of their territory in return for a share of the plunder. Plus, it keeps those races weaker than the Drazi so that they can remain the dominant power. And all while the Drazi pantomime being above such imperialism. Don't blame me, I voted for green. Thanks to Lita's warning, the White Star fleet skips the rendezvous and heads straight to the Enfili planet, while Sheridan gathers the members of the Alliance. He tells them the good news. The raiders around the Enfili homeworld have been wiped out. And now we're just waiting for the rest of the ships to arrive to annihilate them as well. Gonna be a good one. Want to place bets, Ambassador? See how fast the White Stars wipe out the unsuspecting arriving ships? I'm feeling lucky. So the Ambassador, when he sees he can't leave to warn them and is confronted over what's happening, he admits that, yeah, the Drazi have been exploiting the Enfili and pleads that they be warned not to head into that ambush. Well, at the sight of this, the rest sign the Declaration of Principles, seeing as how they kind of sort of need to promise not to ever do this kind of thing again. And Lita goes to hear more of what Byron has to say, and that is definitely not something that is ending here, believe you me. The Paragon of Animals is somewhat important, as it shows how Lita first is drawn to talk with Byron. I give it a stamp of fine. There are some nice moments, but it's not really standout. Byron has legitimate grievances, and not wanting to give Garibaldi the time of day is perfectly reasonable. But his interest in his people to the exclusion of all others is not. If he wouldn't even drop an anonymous warning to Sheridan, who gave his people a place to live, that his people are going to be wiped out, he's a dick. Contrast Byron with that ranger. Not only does the ranger give his life for strangers, his final thoughts as he realizes he's dying is to nevertheless plead for people that he barely knows. I see no way anyone can say with a straight face that Byron is better than him, unless it's better at being a selfish jerk.